June 1945, Bavaria. German POWs in Patton's camps were organized and disciplined. They were fed. They had shelter. They had purpose. But some of them didn't understand their situation. A group of German officers organized the workers. They decided together. They would refuse work assignments. They would demand better conditions. They would use their labor as leverage. It was a negotiating tactic. They thought Patton would have to negotiate. They thought they had power. The work refusal was reported to General Patton. Patton read the report. German prisoners refusing to work, demanding concessions. He understood immediately. These men still thought they were soldiers with authority, still thought they could negotiate, still thought they had leverage. Patton decided to teach them the difference between being a soldier and being a prisoner, between having rights and having privileges. He gave one order to his commanders: feed them water and bread, nothing else, until they understand that refusing doesn't work. What happened over the next 7 days would break their resistance completely. This is what Patton did. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. We tell stories about World War II that show leadership, discipline, and the real cost of defiance. The date was June 20th, 1945, 1 month after Germany's surrender. Patton's Third Army was consolidating control over Bavaria, managing prisoners, organizing occupation, establishing order in a defeated nation. The POW camp near Munich held approximately 4,000 German soldiers, officers, NCOs, and enlisted men, still organized along military lines, still thinking like a military unit rather than prisoners. The camp commander was Major Thomas Roberts, age 39, from New York. He'd been 9 from New York. He'd been managing the camp efficiently for 3 weeks. The prisoners received adequate food, standard military rations, 3 meals a day. They had shelter. They had work assignments appropriate to their rank and mobility. But adequacy wasn't what the German prisoners expected. The senior German officer in the camp was Colonel Dietrich von Steiger, age 52, former Wehrmacht general. He'd commanded a division during the war. Now he was a prisoner. Von Steiger was still thinking like a general. He still expected authority. He still expected to negotiate. He called a meeting of the senior German officers, approximately 30 of them. "We are soldiers," von Steiger said. "We have rights under the Geneva Convention. We should not be forced to work. We should not accept the conditions." "What do you propose?" asked another officer, Major Klaus Hoffmann. "We refuse to work," von Steiger said. "We coordinate all the prisoners. No one works. No one cooperates. We use our labor as leverage. The Americans cannot rebuild without us. They will have to negotiate." The officers agreed. It was a bold strategy. They believed it would work. Von Steiger sent word through the camp. The message was clear and organized. Tomorrow, when work assignments are given, no one works. Everyone refuses. Silently, completely, a united stand. The next morning, work details were called. Approximately 2,000 German prisoners were assigned to various tasks: clearing rubble, organizing supplies, maintaining the camp infrastructure. But when the work details were called to report, no one moved. The German prisoners stood in formation, silent, organized, refusing. Major Roberts was stunned. In 3 weeks there had been no problems. He immediately reported to General Patton. "Sir, we have a work refusal. Approximately 2,000 prisoners have organized and are refusing all work assignments. They appear to be making a coordinated stand." Patton listened carefully. "Has anyone stated demands?" he asked. "No, sir. They're just refusing." Silent protest. Patton understood immediately what was happening. The prisoners thought they had leverage. They thought labor was something the Americans needed badly enough to negotiate for. They were wrong. "Major Roberts, here's what you're going to do," Patton said. "Yes, sir. Feed those prisoners bread and water, that's all. No meat, no vegetables, no meat. Extras, just bread and water. For 7 days. Sir Roberts hesitated.
"You heard me. Bread and water. 7 days. Let them understand what leverage
really means." "Yes, sir. I'll implement immediately." The order went out that evening. All prisoners in the refusal group would receive 1 loaf of bread per day and water. No other food, no other rations. When the German prisoners heard, they were shocked. This wasn't negotiation. This was punishment. Immediate. Absolute. Von Steiger called an emergency meeting. "It's a bluff," he told the other officers. The Americans cannot starve prisoners. The Geneva Convention forbids it. They will back down in 2 days. But Patton didn't back down. Day 1, bread and water only. The German prisoners were hungry, but they held firm. The refusal continued. Day 2, bread and water only. Hunger was becoming real. Stomachs were cramping. Energy was dropping. But the prisoners still held. Von Steiger assured them it was temporary. The Americans would negotiate soon. Day 3, bread and water only. Hunger was now severe. Men were becoming weak. Some were unable to work even if they wanted to. Von Steiger began to worry. Maybe this wasn't a bluff. Day 4, bread and water only. Prisoners were fainting. Some were becoming ill from the lack of nutrition. The camp medical officer reported cases of dizziness and weakness. Von Steiger went to Major Roberts. "Sir, the men are starving. They cannot continue like this. We are ready to return to work." Roberts consulted with Patton. "Tell them they can work tomorrow," Patton said, "and they'll be back on full rations." But von Steiger's message to the prisoners had a different effect than expected. That night, the prisoners began to break. They realized Patton was serious. Realized this wasn't negotiation. This was punishment for defiance. Day 5, bread and water only. But the refusal began to crack. Some prisoners started asking to be assigned to work. They wanted the food back. Von Steiger tried to maintain unity, but it was failing. Day 6, bread and water only. By now, the organized refusal had completely fallen apart. Prisoners were begging to work. They wanted food. They wanted normal rations back. Von Steiger realized his miscalculation. He'd believed that American military efficiency would require German prisoner labor. He'd believed the Americans would negotiate. He'd been wrong. Day 7, bread and water only. By the end of Day 7, every single prisoner who had participated in the refusal was ready to work. They were ready to comply. They understood now that they had no leverage. The next morning, work assignments were called. Every prisoner reported. Every prisoner worked. And every prisoner was back on full rations. Word spread through Patton's other POW camps about what had happened. The message was clear. Refuse to work and you eat only bread and water. Work, and you eat normal rations. There were no more work refusals in any of Patton's camps. The German prisoners learned quickly that they were prisoners, not negotiators. That they had no leverage. That Patton's patience was limited. Von Steiger survived the war. He was eventually released and returned to Germany in 1947. In later interviews, he spoke about the experience. "I made a terrible miscalculation," von Steiger said. "I believed that General Patton would negotiate because he needed our labor. I believed that we, as officers, still had status and could make demands." "What did you learn?" the interviewer asked. "That Patton didn't need us. That he would rather have slow progress with Americans than fast progress with German prisoners who thought they could negotiate. That being a prisoner means having no power, no leverage, no negotiating position." "Did the week of starvation break you?" Von Steiger paused for a long moment. "It broke my belief that I still had authority. It broke my understanding of my situation. And it was the most effective punishment I could have received because it wasn't brutal violence. It was simple consequence. Refuse to work. Don't eat. Work. Eat normally." It was as simple as that. Patton never spoke publicly about the incident. But in a letter to his wife, he wrote, "Today I had to remind German prisoners that they are prisoners, not soldiers. They tried to organize a work refusal, believing I would negotiate. I put them on bread and water for a week. Now they understand. Sometimes the most effective punishment is the simplest one. Consequence. Direct and immediate. It works." The incident became legendary in Patton's command. Officers spoke about it, soldiers talked about it, and every German prisoner in every American camp heard about it. The message was simple. Patton didn't negotiate with prisoners. He led them, and if they refused to follow, he taught them what that meant. But would you have broken the refusal the same way, or would you have tried to negotiate? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories about leadership and discipline in World War II, make sure to subscribe.